he has an accident. Let's see who goes first.
The crowbar felt cold in my hand as I stared at the luxury Escalade blocking my garage. 15 years of marriage, and I'd never seen this vehicle in my driveway. The engine was still ticking. Whoever was inside hadn't been waiting long. I set my lunch cooler down on the cracked asphalt and approached the driver's side. The windows were tinted dark, but I could make out shadows moving inside. 2 figures in the front, 2 in the back. That's when I heard her laugh. Tasha's laugh. The same one she'd used on our first date, the same one that had convinced me to propose. But now it was mixed with a man's voice I didn't recognize. Low, confident. The kind of voice that belonged to someone who never doubted he was the smartest person in the room. I knocked on the window with my knuckle. The laughter stopped. The window rolled down slowly, and there was my wife. Her blonde hair was styled differently, sleeker, more expensive looking. She wore a black dress I'd never seen before, the kind that cost more than I made in a week at the plant. But it was her eyes that made my stomach drop. Cold, distant, like she was looking at a stranger. "Hello, Ethan," she said, her voice flat. The man next to her leaned forward. Mid-40s, clean-shaven, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my truck. He had the kind of smile that made you want to punch it off his face. "You must be the husband," he said, extending his hand through the window. "I'm Braden Mitchell." I didn't take his hand. "Get out of my driveway." Braden's smile widened. "Actually, that's what we're here to discuss. You see, Tasha and I have some news to share." The back doors opened. 2 men got out, one tall and skinny with prison tattoos covering his arms, the other shorter but built like a bull. They moved with the casual confidence of men who'd done this before. "Ethan," Tasha said, "I need you to listen carefully. Braden and I are together now. I've already packed my things." The tall one pulled a black garbage bag from the trunk and dropped it at my feet. Through the thin plastic, I could see papers, official-looking documents with seals and signatures. "Divorce papers," Braden explained, like he was discussing the weather. "Everything's already been filed. Very clean, very simple. You sign, she gets half of everything. Everybody moves on with their lives." "And if I don't sign?" I asked. The shorter man stepped closer. Up close, I could see scars on his knuckles, the kind you get from hitting concrete walls or jawbones. "Then things get complicated," he said. His voice was gravelly, like he'd been smoking since he was 12. "Name's Drew. My friend here is Snake. We're here to make sure you understand the situation." I looked back at Tasha. She was staring out the windshield, avoiding my eyes. 15 years, I said. 15 years, and this is how you do it? "I'm sorry," she said, but her voice was mechanical, rehearsed. "I should have told you sooner, but I'm with Braden now. He can give me things you never could." "Like what?" Braden laughed. "Security. A future. A man who doesn't come home covered in grease and smelling like motor oil." That's when Snake made his mistake. He reached into his jacket, not for a tool, but for something else. A syringe, the kind they use to put down dogs. My 12 years working offshore hadn't just taught me how to fix engines in hurricane weather. It had taught me how to read situations, how to spot trouble before it spotted you. More importantly, it had taught me that when someone reaches for something to hurt you, you don't wait to see what it is. I swung the crowbar in a wide arc. It caught Snake in the temple with a sound like a baseball hitting a catcher's mitt. He dropped like a sack of cement. Drew lunged at me, but I was already moving. 15 years in a machine shop teaches you to handle tools with precision. The wrench I'd pulled from my belt caught him square in the jaw. His head snapped back, and he collapsed next to his partner. The whole thing took maybe 10 seconds. Braden was out of the car now, backing toward the street, his hands raised. "Jesus Christ," he said. "You're crazy." I looked down at the 2 men. Snake was breathing, but unconscious. Drew was trying to sit up. I kicked the syringe away from Snake's hand and picked it up. "What was this for?" I asked Braden. "I don't know what you're talking about." I held up the syringe. "Heroin? Fentanyl? Were you planning to make it look like an overdose?" "You're paranoid," Tasha said, but her voice was shaking now. "We just wanted to talk." I dumped the garbage bag on the ground. Divorce papers scattered across the driveway, but there were other things, too. A prepaid cell phone still in the package. A manila envelope with my name on it. Inside the envelope was a life insurance policy. $3 million. Beneficiary, Tasha Mitchell. Not Tasha Sullivan. My wife had already changed her name. But it was the date that made my stomach turn. The policy was dated for this weekend. Tomorrow. $3 million, I said, looking at Tasha. That's a lot of money for a woman whose husband just had a tragic accident. Drew was on his feet now, swaying but upright. You don't know what you're messing with, he said. I know exactly what I'm messing with. I pointed the crowbar at him. Get in your car and drive away, both of you, and take my cheating wife with you. Snake was stirring, groaning as he tried to sit up. Drew helped him to his feet, and they stumbled toward the Escalade. Braden opened the back door for them, then turned to face me. This isn't over. Yes, it is, I said. The policy isn't signed. Without my signature, it's worthless paper. Tasha got out of the car and took a step toward me. For a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married, uncertain, maybe even sorry. Ethan, please, you don't understand. There are people involved in this that you don't want to cross. The only person I'm crossing is you, I said. And after 15 years of marriage, I know exactly what you're worth. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Then the coldness returned to her eyes. You'll regret this. I already do, I said. I regret the day I met you. They drove away, leaving me standing in my driveway with divorce papers scattered around my feet and a syringe full of poison in my hand. That's when I noticed the real problem. The life insurance policy wasn't just dated for this weekend. It was scheduled to go into effect at midnight tonight, whether I signed it or not. Someone had forged my signature. Sheriff Maggie Patterson was waiting for me at Mel's Diner when I arrived the next morning. She'd already ordered coffee and was reading something on her phone, her brow furrowed in concentration. At 42, she still looked like the tough farm girl who'd grown up 3 houses down from mine. But 20 years in law enforcement had added lines around her eyes, and a wariness that hadn't been there when we were kids. You look like heck, she said as I slid into the booth across from her. Rough night. I signaled the waitress for coffee. Thanks for meeting me. When an old friend calls at 6 in the morning asking to meet, I pay attention. She set her phone down and leaned forward. What's going on, Ethan? I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Inside were copies of everything I'd found in the garbage bag. Divorce papers, the insurance policy, photos I'd taken of the syringe and Snake's tattoos. Maggie flipped through the documents, her expression growing darker with each page. Jesus, she said finally. $3 million? That's a heck of a motive. The policy was supposed to go into effect yesterday, I said. Someone forged my signature. You're sure about that? I showed her my driver's license, then pointed to the signature on the policy. Look at the E in Ethan. I always loop it. This one's printed. She studied both signatures carefully. You're right. This is definitely forged. She looked up at me. What about the syringe? Lab would need to test it, but I'm guessing it's something that would stop my heart. Make it look natural. And these 2 men, Snake and Drew, you said they had prison tattoos? Snake had a teardrop under his left eye and a spider web on his elbow. Drew had "Born to Lose" across his knuckles. Maggie made notes in a small pad. I can run those descriptions. See if anyone matching them has been released recently. She paused. But Ethan, I have to ask, why didn't you call me yesterday when this happened? Because I wanted to think it through first. And because I wasn't sure who I could trust. She raised an eyebrow. You've known me your whole life. I've known Tasha for 15 years. Look how that turned out. The waitress brought my coffee. I added sugar and stirred it slowly, trying to organize my thoughts. There's something else, I said. About 3 weeks ago, Tasha started pushing me to update our life insurance. She said interest rates were good. We could get a better policy for less money. She kept leaving brochures around the house talking about how we needed to plan for the future. But you didn't sign anything. I kept putting it off. You know how I am with paperwork. I took a sip of coffee. Now I'm thinking she was getting impatient. Maggie nodded. So she found another way to make it happen. Question is, how long has this been planned? That's what I need to find out. I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo I'd taken of the Escalade's license plate. Can you run this for me? She copied down the number. Officially, I can't share DMV information without cause. Unofficially, if you happen to be in the office later and see something on my desk, Well, accidents happen. Thanks, Mag. She closed the folder and slid it back to me. What are you planning to do? I don't know yet, but I'm not signing those divorce papers, and I'm not dying in some convenient accident. Be careful, she said. If these people were willing to end you once, they'll try again. Let them try. She reached across the table and grabbed my wrist. I'm serious, Ethan. Don't do anything stupid. If you get evidence of a crime, bring it to me. Let me handle it legally. And if the legal system fails, then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. She stood up and dropped a 5 on the table. Call me tonight. Let me know you're still breathing. After she left, I sat in the diner for another hour, thinking. The smart play was to lay low, let Maggie handle the investigation, maybe hire a lawyer and fight the divorce in court. But smart wasn't what I was feeling. I was feeling 15 years of being taken for granted. 15 years of working double shifts so Tasha could stay home and find herself. 15 years of her complaints about our house, our car, our life. Complaints that apparently ended the moment she met a man with money. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Sign the papers or else. I typed back, or else what? The response came immediately. Ask Snake how his head feels. I smiled and typed, tell Snake I have more crowbars. No response. I paid my check and walked out to my truck. Time to do some investigating of my own. The GPS tracker cost me $48 at an electronics store in the next town over. Magnetic mount, real-time location updates sent to my phone. Battery life of 2 weeks. The kid at the counter assured me it was totally legal for tracking your own vehicle, sir. I didn't tell him it wasn't my vehicle. Finding Braden's Escalade took 3 days of surveillance. I started with the obvious places, expensive restaurants, the country club, the fancy part of town where the houses had circular driveways and 3-car garages. Nothing. It was Maggie who gave me the breakthrough, though she didn't know it. She called Thursday evening while I was sitting in the parking lot of the 5th hotel I'd checked. Your friend Braden Mitchell owns a property management company, she said. Specializes in luxury rentals and vacation homes, big portfolio, lots of cash flow. Dirty money? Not obviously, but he's got 3 houses, 2 cars, and a boat. Either he's very good at his job or he's got other income streams. What about Snake and Drew? Drew Kowalski, released from state prison 6 months ago. Assault and battery, extortion. As Snake is Thomas Nakamura. And yes, that's actually his legal name now. He changed it after his last conviction. Armed robbery, served 4 years. I made notes on a napkin. How'd they hook up with Braden? That's where it gets interesting. Drew's parole officer is married to Braden's sister. Small world, right? Too small. I started my truck. Thanks, Mag. Ethan, promise me you're not doing anything. I hung up and drove to the address she'd given me for Mitchell Property Management. It was a converted house in the old business district with a small parking lot behind it. The Escalade wasn't there, but I spotted something almost as good. A white Honda Civic with a blessed bumper sticker and a University of State alumni frame. Tasha's car. I parked across the street and waited. At 6:15, Braden came out of the building with my wife. She was wearing another dress I'd never seen, this one red and tight. He had his hand on the small of her back, guiding her toward the Escalade like she was his prized possession. They drove to Romano's, the most expensive Italian restaurant in town. I followed at a distance and watched them through the window. They sat at a corner table, sharing a bottle of wine that probably cost more than I spent on groceries in a month. That's when I made my move. The parking lot was poorly lit, and the Escalade was parked away from the streetlights. It took me 30 seconds to attach the GPS tracker to the inside of the rear wheel well. Invisible, unless you knew where to look. I was back in my truck when my phone chimed with the first location update. Over the next 2 days, I learned Braden's routine. Mornings at the office, lunch at various restaurants around town, afternoons showing properties to potential clients. But it was the evenings that interested me most. 3 nights a week, he went to Tasha's apartment, a place I hadn't even known she had. The other nights, he visited a different address, a townhouse on the east side of town. According to the GPS, he usually stayed there for 2 to 3 hours. On Sunday evening, I decided to take a closer look. The townhouse was in a development called Riverside Gardens, the kind of place where young professionals lived before they got married and bought real houses. I parked at the end of the street and walked through the common area, trying to look like a resident out for an evening stroll. The lights were on in Unit 47B. Through the sheer curtains, I could see Braden sitting on a couch, talking to someone I couldn't see clearly. A woman with dark hair, wearing what looked like a silk robe. I was trying to get a better angle when my phone buzzed. The tracker showed the Escalade was on the move. I jogged back to my truck and followed the signal. It led me to a bar called the Rusty Anchor, a dive place near the river where the drinks were cheap and the music was loud. I waited in the parking lot until Braden came out, stumbling slightly, clearly drunk. But he wasn't alone. The woman from the townhouse was with him, mid-30s, black hair, pretty in a hard kind of way. She was laughing at something he'd said, her hand resting on his chest. They got into the Escalade together. I followed them back to the townhouse and watched through my binoculars as they went inside. The lights stayed on for another hour, then went dark. Braden's car was still there in the morning. That afternoon, I did some research. The townhouse was rented to someone named Lexi Vance. A reverse phone number search turned up a Facebook profile. Divorced, worked as a bartender at a casino 40 miles away, posted a lot of photos of herself in revealing outfits. I scrolled through her photos until I found what I was looking for. A picture from 2 months ago showing her and Braden at a restaurant, both of them grinning at the camera. The caption read, "Best night ever with my secret man. Can't wait for our future together." 2 months ago. That was before Tasha had started pushing me to sign the insurance papers, which meant Braden had been planning this long before my wife ever filed for divorce. I screenshotted everything and started planning my next move. Getting close to Lexi Vance turned out to be easier than I'd expected. She worked Tuesday through Saturday nights at the Lucky 7 casino, serving drinks to gamblers who tipped better when she leaned over their tables. I spent 3 evenings watching her routine before I made my approach. Thursday night, I waited until her shift ended at 2 a.m. She came out the employee exit looking tired, her makeup slightly smeared, counting a stack of tips. I was sitting on the hood of my truck, smoking a cigarette I'd bummed from another employee. "Rough night?" I asked. She looked up, wary, but not alarmed. "You waiting for someone?" "Yeah, you." I flicked the cigarette away and stood up. "My name's Ethan Sullivan. I think you know my wife." The color drained from her face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Tasha, blonde hair, fake smile, married to a guy who works at the machine shop." I pulled out my phone and showed her the Facebook photo. "That's you with Braden Mitchell." "My wife's new boyfriend." She looked around the parking lot like she was planning to run. "Look, I don't want any trouble." "Neither do I. I just want to talk." "About what?" "About how Braden's been lying to both of us." That got her attention. She stopped looking for escape routes and focused on me. "What do you mean? He told you he was going to leave Tasha for you, right? Soon as he got his hands on some money?" Her silence was answer enough. "The money he's after is $3 million from my life insurance policy. And the only way he gets it is if I'm gone." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "That's crazy. Braden wouldn't hurt anyone. 2 nights ago, he sent 2 ex-cons to my house with a syringe full of something that would have stopped my heart. You want to see the pictures?" I showed her the photos I'd taken. Snake and Drew unconscious in my driveway, the syringe, the forged insurance documents. "Jesus," she whispered. "The plan was simple. End me, make it look like an overdose or a heart attack, collect the insurance money, and disappear with you. Except there's a problem." "What problem?" "He's not planning to disappear with you. He's planning to disappear with Tasha. You're just the side piece to keep him entertained while he sets up his real score." She shook her head. "You're lying." "Am I? When's the last time he took you somewhere public? Somewhere people might see you together?" Her expression told me I'd hit the mark. "How about this?" I said. "Next time you're with him, ask him about his plans for the future. Ask him where you fit in, record the conversation, and see what he says." "Why would I help you?" "Because in about a week, I'm going to be not alive and he's going to be rich. And once he doesn't need you anymore, what do you think happens to the loose end who knows about his involvement in ending?" She stared at me for a long moment. "You really think he'd end you?" "I think he already tried. And I think if you're smart, you'll help me prove it before he decides you know too much." I handed her a business card with my cell phone number written on the back. "Think about it, but don't think too long. My life insurance policy goes into effect this weekend, and I don't plan to live that long if I can help it." I left her standing in the parking lot and drove home. She called me the next afternoon. "I'll do it," she said. "But I want something in return." "What?" I want copies of whatever evidence you get. If this goes bad, I want to be able to protect myself. Deal. And I want to know what you're really planning. You're not just going to the police with this, are you? No, I said. I'm not. Good. Because the police didn't help me when my ex-husband was beating me, and they won't help you when a rich man wants you gone. That evening, she texted me, "He's coming over. Wish me luck." 2 hours later, she sent me an audio file. I listened to it 3 times, my anger building with each replay. Braden's voice was slightly slurred. He'd been drinking, but his words were clear enough. Soon as the insurance money comes through, we're out of here, baby. You, me, and $3 million in the Cayman Islands. What about Tasha? Lexi asked. What about her? She's just the grieving widow. Once she signs over her half of the money, she can grieve all she wants. I'll be on a beach somewhere, drinking rum and counting my profits. But you said you loved her? Braden laughed. I love her signature on legal documents. The rest of her is just packaging. You're the one I want to be with, baby. You know that? And Ethan? What happens to him? Ethan has an accident. Happens all the time in his line of work. Industrial accidents, you know? Guy gets crushed by machinery or falls into a vat of something toxic. Very tragic. Very final. Won't the police investigate? Not if it looks like an accident. And Drew knows how to make things look very accidental. He's got experience with that kind of work. The recording went on for another 10 minutes, with Braden describing in detail how he planned to end me, dispose of my body, and split the insurance money with Tasha before disappearing with Lexi. It was enough to put him away for conspiracy to commit crime. It was also enough to destroy Tasha's life, even if she didn't go to prison. But sending him to prison wasn't what I had in mind. I called Lexi back. Perfect, I told her. Can you get more? How much more do you need? Everything. I want him to confess to things he hasn't even thought of yet. She was quiet for a moment. What are you planning, Ethan? Justice, I said. The kind the courts can't deliver. Calvin Cal Thompson lived in a house that looked like it hadn't been painted since the Carter administration. The yard was overgrown, the mailbox tilted at a 45-degree angle, and there were at least 3 cars in various states of decay scattered around the property. But I knew better than to judge by appearances. Cal had always been the kind of man who preferred to look poor while staying very, very rich. He answered the door wearing a bathrobe and holding a cup of coffee, even though it was 3 in the afternoon. Well, well, he said, grinning with teeth that were too white to be natural. Ethan Sullivan, thought you passed away. Not yet, I said. Can I come in? He stepped aside and gestured toward a living room that smelled like cigarettes and motor oil. The furniture was old but comfortable, and every surface was covered with papers, tools, and electronic equipment I didn't recognize. You look like crap, he said, settling into a recliner that had probably been expensive 20 years ago. Been a rough week. I sat down on the couch and looked around the room. You still in the same business? Depends what business you think I'm in. Fixing problems for people who can't go to the police. Cal laughed and lit a cigarette. That's a very diplomatic way to put it. Yes, I still fix problems. Question is, what kind of problem you got? I told him everything. The divorce, the insurance scam, Snake and Drew, the recordings from Lexi. He listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or making notes on a napkin. So, let me get this straight, he said when I finished. Your wife and her boyfriend tried to have you ended for insurance money, and now you want me to help you get revenge. That's the short version. And what kind of revenge we talking about? You want them beaten up, scared off, or are we talking about something more permanent? I want them destroyed, completely. I want their lives ruined, their reputations gone, their money taken away. I want them to understand what it feels like to lose everything. Cal nodded slowly. That's the kind of job I like. Clean, thorough, satisfying. He stubbed out his cigarette and leaned forward. What's in it for me? What do you need? Information. There's a man named Vincent Torres who's been causing problems for some of my other clients. He runs a gambling operation out of a warehouse on the south side of town. I need to know his schedule, his security arrangements, who he talks to. How am I supposed to get that information? Your friend Braden. According to what you've told me, he's got connections to some unsavory people. Dollars to donuts, he knows Torres or knows someone who does. Get me what I need, and I'll take care of your problem. How? Cal smiled. Leave that to me. But I promise you, when I'm done, Braden and Tasha won't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. I shook his hand. Deal. One more thing. he said as I stood to leave. This goes bad. You don't know me. We never met, never talked, never existed in the same universe. Clear? Crystal. I was halfway to my truck when he called out from the doorway. Hey, Ethan? Yeah? That recording your girlfriend made? You might want to send copies to a few people, insurance companies maybe, or the media. You never know who might be interested in a story like that. That evening, I created anonymous email accounts and sent the audio file to 3 different news outlets, along with copies of the forged insurance documents and photos of Snake and Drew. I also sent a copy to the fraud investigation department of the insurance company. By morning, the story was on the front page of the local newspaper. Local businessmen accused of insurance fraud and ending plot. The headline included a photo of Braden from his company website, smiling in a suit and tie. The article quoted anonymous sources and included transcripts of key portions of the recording. I bought 5 copies of the paper and mailed them to Tasha's parents, her sister, her best friend from college, and her boss at the real estate office where she'd worked before quitting to focus on her marriage. Then I sat back and watched the world burn. The first call came at 7:30 a.m. Tasha's father, Thomas, had a voice like gravel in a cement mixer, and a temper that had terrified me for the first 5 years of my marriage. What the heck is this I'm reading in the paper? He demanded. I was sitting in my kitchen drinking coffee and watching the sunrise through my window. I'm not sure what you mean, Tom. Don't play dumb with me, boy. This article about Tasha and some insurance scam. Please tell me this is some kind of mistake. No mistake. She tried to have me ended for $3 million. Silence. Then, you're lying. I've got recordings. Would you like to hear them? Another pause. Send them to me. I forwarded him the audio file and hung up. 20 minutes later, Tasha called. She was crying. How could you do this to me? She sobbed. My parents won't even talk to me. My sister hung up on me. I've been fired from my job. You tried to have me ended, I said calmly. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences? That wasn't my idea. Braden said we could just scare you into signing the papers. And the part where he planned to dump my body? Was that his idea too? Or were you just along for the ride? I never wanted you to get hurt. I just wanted out of this marriage. Then you should have asked for a divorce like a normal person. Instead, you decided $3 million was worth more than my life. She was crying harder now. Please, Ethan, please make this stop. I'll do anything. There's nothing to stop. You made your choices. Now, you get to live with them. I hung up and turned off my phone. By noon, the story had been picked up by the regional news. A reporter from Channel 7 was standing outside Braden's office, interviewing clients who were demanding their money back. The property management company had lost 3 major accounts before lunch. Maggie called in the afternoon. Jesus Christ, Ethan, what did you do? I told the truth. You could have given me the evidence first. Let me handle it through proper channels. Proper channels take time. And while you're filing paperwork, they're planning my funeral. Where are you getting this information? The recordings, the photos? This isn't amateur hour. Does it matter? Everything I've given you is legitimate evidence of a crime. That's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about what you're planning to do next. Nothing illegal. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're going to get. She sighed. Be careful, Ethan. Whatever you're thinking of doing, remember that revenge has a way of eating the person who seeks it. Then I'll make sure to digest it properly. That evening, I drove to the Lucky 7 casino to check on Lexi. She was working her usual shift, but she looked nervous. Every few minutes, she glanced toward the exit like she was expecting trouble. During her break, she met me in the parking lot. He's going crazy, she said. Braden's been calling me all day, screaming about how everything's falling apart. He thinks I betrayed him. Did you? Of course I did. After hearing that recording, you think I wanted to stick around for whatever he had planned next? What's he saying about the story? He's denying everything, claims the recording was faked, that you're setting him up because you're jealous. But nobody's buying it. I nodded. What about Tasha? She came to see him this morning. They had a huge fight in his office. She's blaming him for everything, saying she never agreed to him. He's saying she knew the plan all along. Honor among thieves. There's something else, she said. He's planning to leave town. Tonight. He asked me to come with him. And? I told him I needed to think about it. But Ethan, I'm scared. What if he decides I know too much? I pulled a business card from my wallet and wrote a phone number on the back. If anything happens, call this number. Ask for Cal. Tell him you're working with me. She looked at the card. Who's Cal? Someone who fixes problems. I left her at the casino and drove home. My phone had 17 missed calls. Reporters, lawyers, people who'd known Tasha and wanted to hear my side of the story. I ignored them all. Tomorrow, things would get interesting. The anonymous email arrived in my inbox at 6 a.m. Cabin on Mill Creek Road, Saturday night. Come alone or I disappear forever. We can settle this like men. B. I stared at the message for a long time, then forwarded it to Cal with a note. This is it. You ready? His response came back within minutes. Born ready. Give me 24 hours to prep the site. Mill Creek Road was a winding dirt track that led deep into state forest land. The cabin Braden had mentioned was an old hunting lodge that had been abandoned for years. No cell phone coverage, no neighbors for miles, and only one way in or out. Perfect for what I had in mind. I spent Friday gathering supplies: rope, duct tape, portable lights, a digital camera, and a few other items Cal had requested. I also stopped by the bank and withdrew $5,000 in cash, money I'd been saving for a vacation that would never happen. Saturday afternoon, I drove out to the cabin to meet Cal. He was already there, along with two men I didn't recognize. One was setting up video equipment, while the other worked on soundproofing the windows. Welcome to your new studio, Cal said, gesturing around the main room. Full audio and video recording, battery-powered lighting, and enough soundproofing to muffle a jet engine? What's the plan? Simple. They show up thinking they're going to end you and dispose of your body. Instead, they walk into a confession booth. We get everything on tape. Who planned what, where the money is, what they did to other people. Full disclosure. And then, Cal smiled, then we give them a choice. Sign over everything they own, or we release the tapes to the FBI. What if they don't cooperate? Then things get unpleasant, but don't worry. Nobody ends unless they force the issue. This is about justice. One of Cal's men looked up from the camera he was adjusting. Motion sensors are set up outside. We'll know when they arrive, and we'll know if anyone else comes with them. How many people are you expecting? I asked. Braden for sure, Cal said. Probably Tasha. Maybe Snake and Drew if they're feeling brave. But I doubt it. Those two are probably halfway to Mexico by now. I checked my watch. They're supposed to be here at 9. Then we've got 3 hours to finish setup and go over the plan one more time. At 8:45, the motion sensors triggered. Cal's radio crackled. 2 vehicles approaching. Looks like the Escalade and a small sedan. Through the window, I watched the headlights wind up the dirt road. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. 15 years of marriage, and it was finally going to end the way it should have started, with honesty. Braden got out of the Escalade first, looking around nervously. He was wearing dark clothes and carrying what looked like a duffel bag. Tasha emerged from the sedan, also dressed in black. She moved like someone who didn't want to be there. They approached the cabin together, but I could see the tension between them. Whatever relationship they'd had was falling apart under pressure. Braden knocked on the door. Ethan, you in there? I opened the door and stepped back. Come in, both of you. They entered cautiously, Tasha staying close to the door while Braden moved toward the center of the room. His eyes were constantly moving, taking in details, looking for threats. Close the door, I said to Tasha. She hesitated, then pulled it shut. The sound of the latch clicking seemed to echo in the small room. So, Braden said, setting down his duffel bag. Here we are. Here we are, I agreed. Just the 3 of us. No Snake, no Drew, no witnesses. About that, Braden said, I want you to know that whole thing was a misunderstanding. Those guys were supposed to talk to you, not hurt you. With a syringe full of poison? That was their idea. I just wanted them to convince you to sign the papers. Tasha was fidgeting near the door. Can we just get this over with? I want to go home. Home? I looked at her. Which home would that be? The apartment you rented with my money, or the one you were planning to buy with my life insurance? That's enough, Braden said. We're here to make a deal. You sign the divorce papers, we disappear, and everybody moves on with their lives. What about the $3 million? What about it? You forged my signature on an insurance policy. That's fraud. You hired 2 men to end me. That's conspiracy to commit crime. You want to make a deal? Let's talk about what you're willing to confess to. Braden laughed. Confess? You think we're stupid? There's no proof of anything. Those recordings could have been faked. The photos don't show us doing anything illegal, and without Snake and Drew to testify, you've got nothing. I've got enough to destroy your reputation. Reputations can be rebuilt. Money can be moved offshore. In 6 months, this will all be forgotten, and Tasha and I will be living on a beach somewhere. What about Lexi? Braden's expression hardened. What about her? You promised her she'd be going to that beach with you. Was that a lie too? Tasha spun around to face him. Who's Lexi? Nobody important, Braden said quickly. Nobody important? I pulled out my phone and played one of the recordings. Braden's voice filled the room. You're the one I want to be with, baby. You know that. Tasha's face went white. You son of a witch. You've been cheating on me. It's not what you think. What I think is that you're a lying piece of crap who is planning to disappear with your whore and leave me holding the bag for crime. They started screaming at each other, all pretense of cooperation forgotten. I stepped back and let them destroy each other with words that cut deeper than any tool. That's when Cal's voice came through the hidden speakers. Congratulations. You've just confessed to conspiracy to commit ending, insurance fraud, and adultery on camera. Everything you've said in the last 10 minutes has been recorded and will be admissible in court. Braden spun around, looking for the source of the voice. What the heck? The cameras are hidden, I said. The microphones are in the walls. Every word, every gesture, every threat you've made has been captured in high definition. Tasha was backing toward the door, but it wouldn't open. Cal had engaged the electronic locks. Here's how this works, I continued. You're going to sign confessions to everything you've done. You're going to transfer all your assets into accounts I control, and you're going to disappear from my life forever. And if we don't? Braden asked. Then copies of these recordings go to the FBI, the State Attorney General, the IRS, and every news outlet in the country. Your faces will be on every television screen from here to California. Braden reached into his duffel bag and pulled out a pistol. I don't think so. The moment the tool appeared, the cabin's lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, bathing everything in red. Through hidden speakers, Cal's voice was calm and professional. Mr. Mitchell, you are now threatening a witness with a tool. That's another felony we can add to your list. Show yourselves, Braden shouted, waving the tool around wildly. Put the tool down and we can discuss this like civilized people, Cal said. Instead, Braden grabbed Tasha by the arm and pressed the tool to her head. Whoever you are, back off or she perishes. That's when I made my move. 15 years of marriage had taught me exactly how Tasha would react to being grabbed roughly. She'd go completely limp. It was a defense mechanism she'd developed as a child, and it worked perfectly now. As she collapsed in his arms, his grip loosened just enough for me to grab the tool barrel and twist it away from her head. The tool discharged into the ceiling, the sound deafening in the small space. I drove my knee into Braden's solar plexus, and he doubled over, gasping for air. The tool skittered across the floor. Cal and his men emerged from their hiding places, moving with professional efficiency. Within seconds, Braden was zip-tied and on his knees, while Tasha cowered in the corner. Well, Cal said, picking up the tool and checking the chamber. That was exciting. Now let's get back to business. Cal pulled up a chair and sat down across from Braden, who was still struggling to catch his breath. Let's start with the basics. What's your full name? Go to heck. Cal nodded to one of his men, who produced a small device that looked like a garage door opener. He pressed a button, and Braden convulsed as electricity coursed through his body. Taser, Cal explained conversationally. Very effective for encouraging honesty. Now what's your full name? Braden Michael Mitchell, he gasped. Excellent. Now tell me about the insurance policy. For the next hour, Cal methodically extracted a full confession from both Braden and Tasha. The plan had started 3 months ago when Braden's business began having cash flow problems. He'd been skimming money from client accounts to pay for his lifestyle, and an audit was going to expose everything. He needed money fast, and Tasha had mentioned her husband's aversion to life insurance. The original plan was simple: get me to sign a policy, then arrange an accident. But when I refused to sign, they decided to forge my signature and move up the timeline. The idea was to make it look like a break-in gone wrong, Tasha said, tears streaming down her face. Snake and Drew were supposed to end you during a robbery. They'd take some valuable items to make it look real. But when that didn't work, Cal prompted. Braden said we could try the overdose angle, she continued. Make it look like you'd started using pills to cope with the divorce stress. And after I was gone, Braden picked up the story. Tasha would collect the insurance money. We'd wait 6 months for things to cool down, then she'd transfer half to my offshore accounts, and we'd disappear. What about Lexi? I asked. Braden glared at me. She was just entertainment. I never had any intention of taking her with us. You were going to end her too? If necessary, she knew too much. Cal made notes on a pad. How many other people have you ended, Mr. Mitchell? What, nobody? This was going to be the first time. Really? What about Vincent Torres? Braden's face went pale. How do you know about Torres? Because I've been looking for him for 6 months. Funny thing is, he disappeared right around the time you started having money problems. Coincidence? That was self-defense. Tell me about it. The story came out in broken pieces. Torres had been supplying Braden with clients for his property management business, wealthy individuals who needed to launder money through real estate transactions. When Torres started demanding a bigger cut of the profits, Braden had panicked and ended him during a meeting. Where's the body? Cal asked. Bottom of Greenwood Lake, weighted down with chains. Cal smiled. Thank you. That's exactly what I needed to know. He turned to Tasha. Now, Mrs. Sullivan, let's talk about your role in all this. I just wanted a divorce, she said. Braden said he could make me rich if I helped him. So you decided your husband's life was worth $3 million? It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Braden said nobody would get hurt. But you signed the divorce papers. You helped forge the insurance documents. You provided them with information about Ethan's schedule, his habits, his weaknesses. She nodded miserably. And you were planning to disappear with the money and let Braden take all the blame if things went wrong. How did you... Because I've been reading your text messages for the past week. Did you really think we couldn't access your phone records? Cal stood up and walked over to a laptop computer. Here's what's going to happen next. You're both going to sign legal documents transferring all your assets to Mr. Sullivan. Houses, cars, bank accounts, investments, everything. In exchange, we're not going to release these recordings to the authorities immediately. Immediately? Braden asked. That's right. You get a 12-hour head start to disappear. After that, copies of everything we've recorded tonight go to the FBI, the state police, and the media. Whether you're still in the country at that point is up to you. That's not much of a choice, Tasha said. It's more of a choice than you gave your husband, Cal replied. Sign the papers or spend the rest of your lives in prison. What's it going to be? They signed. As Cal's men prepared the final documents, I pulled him aside. This isn't enough. What do you mean? They tried to end me. They destroyed my marriage, my trust, my peace of mind. Losing their money isn't enough. What did you have in mind? I told him. Cal listened carefully, then nodded. It'll cost extra. How much? Another $10,000, and you'll need to disappear for a while too, maybe permanently. Done. An hour later, Braden and Tasha were released. They drove away in separate cars, both of them probably thinking they'd gotten away with something. They were wrong. I watched the news from a motel room 200 miles away. The first story broke Monday morning. Bodies found in Greenwood Lake linked to missing businessmen. Divers had recovered Vincent Torres's remains, along with enough evidence to tie his death directly to Braden Mitchell. By afternoon, there was an APB out for both Braden and Tasha in connection with the crime. The second story hit Tuesday evening. Luxury home explosion ends too. Investigation ongoing. According to the report, a gas leak had caused a massive explosion at Braden's house. 2 bodies had been recovered from the wreckage, a man and woman, both burned beyond recognition. Dental records would be needed for positive identification. The third story came Wednesday. Insurance fraud scheme ends in tragedy. This one included excerpts from the recordings Cal had made, along with photos of the forged documents and details about the plot. The reporter interviewed Maggie, who expressed shock that such a thing could happen in their quiet town. Mr. Sullivan was a good man, she said on camera. He didn't deserve what they tried to do to him. I just wish he'd lived to see justice done. Because according to the official record, I had passed away in the house fire, along with my wife and her lover. The dental records Cal's contact in the coroner's office had submitted matched perfectly. Ethan Sullivan was gone. The man sitting in this motel room watching television was someone else entirely. I turned off the TV and pulled out the new driver's license Cal had provided. The photo was mine, but the name was different. Daniel Parker, age 38, address in North Carolina. My new life came with a new job. Cal had arranged for me to work at a machine shop in Asheville. Good pay, quiet town, nobody asking questions about my past. The owner was an old friend of Cal's who understood the value of discretion. The money from Braden and Tasha's assets had been transferred to offshore accounts that couldn't be traced back to anyone. Enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life if I was careful. I thought about Lexi. She testified to the FBI about Braden's confession, then disappeared into witness protection. Smart girl. She'd probably end up with a new identity, too, starting over somewhere far from here. Maggie would figure out the truth eventually. She was too good a cop not to piece it together. But she'd also understand why it had to happen this way. Some crimes can't be solved through legal channels. Thursday morning, I checked out of the motel and drove south. In the rearview mirror, I could see smoke still rising from what used to be Braden's house. The fire department had finally gotten the blaze under control, but there wasn't much left to save. Just like my old life. 6 months later, I was drinking coffee in a diner outside Asheville when the waitress brought me a newspaper. "Thought you might want to see this," she said, pointing to a small article on page 3. Local sheriff promoted to State Bureau of Investigation. There was a photo of Maggie shaking hands with the governor. The article mentioned her work solving several high-profile cases, including the Mitchell ending conspiracy. It quoted her as saying she was looking forward to new challenges. I smiled and folded the paper. She'd done well for herself. The job at the machine shop was everything Cal had promised. Simple work, good pay, and a boss who didn't care about my past as long as I showed up on time and did my job. I'd rented a small house on the outskirts of town. Nothing fancy, but clean and quiet. Most evenings I sat on the porch with a beer and watched the sunset. Sometimes I thought about Tasha, wondered if she'd suffered before the explosion. Mostly I tried not to think about the past at all. But tonight was different. Tonight I had a visitor. "Hello, Ethan." I looked up from my beer to see a woman standing at the edge of my porch. Mid-30s, dark hair, familiar face. It took me a moment to recognize her without the casino uniform. Lexi. She climbed the steps and sat down in the empty chair next to mine. "You're looking good. Peaceful. You shouldn't be here. If someone followed you, nobody followed me. I've gotten very good at watching my back." She accepted the beer I offered her and took a long drink. "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For giving me a chance to start over. For trusting me with the truth about what Braden was planning. You earned that trust." "Did I? Or did you just need someone desperate enough to help you?" I thought about it. "Both, probably." She laughed. "Honest answer." "I like that." She looked out at the sunset. "You know they've both really passed away, right? Braden and Tasha?" I figured. Cal's people found them trying to cross into Mexico. Braden had a tool. There was a fight. And the bodies in the house fire? Homeless people. Cal's contact at the morgue made some switches. Very clean, very professional. I nodded. It was what I'd expected, but hearing it confirmed still felt strange. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Which part?" "Any of it, all of it." I sipped my beer and watched a hawk circle overhead. I regret trusting the wrong person for 15 years. I regret not seeing who Tasha really was until it was almost too late. But do I regret what happened to them? No. They tried to end you for money. They succeeded in ending the man I used to be. The question is whether the man I am now is better or worse. What do you think? I think I'm more honest, more careful about who I trust, less willing to be taken advantage of. Harder? Definitely harder. Lexi finished her beer and stood up. "I should go. I just wanted to see for myself that you were okay." "Where are you living now?" "Seattle. New name, new job, new life. It's not bad." She paused at the top of the steps. "If you ever want to visit the Pacific Northwest, look up Sarah Chen. She works at a bookstore in Capitol Hill." Sarah Chen? My new identity. Ironic, isn't it? I spent so many years trying to be someone else, and now I finally am. After she left, I sat on the porch until full dark. The air was warm and still, full of the sounds of crickets and nightbirds. Peaceful. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Package delivered, services rendered, account closed. C. I deleted the message and turned off the phone. Tomorrow, I'd go to work like any other day. I'd operate machines, repair equipment, earn an honest living under an honest name. Nobody would ask about my past, and I wouldn't volunteer any information about my future. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was the life I'd chosen. And for the first time in 15 years, I was the only one making the choices. I went inside and locked the door behind me. Epilogue. 2 years later, I was managing the machine shop. Jake, the owner, had decided to retire and offered to sell me the business. The deal was fair, the paperwork was clean, and Daniel Parker had built a solid reputation in the community. I was closing up one Friday evening when I found an envelope slipped under the door. No postmark, no return address, just my name written in block letters. Inside was a newspaper clipping and a handwritten note. The clipping was an obituary. Margaret Patterson, 44, gone suddenly at her home in Richmond, Virginia, survived by her husband and 2 children. Memorial services will be held Saturday at First Baptist Church. The note was brief. She never stopped looking for you. Thought you should know. A friend. I read the obituary 3 times, then burned it in the parking lot. Maggie had been promoted to the state level, working cold cases and unsolved crimes. Apparently, one of those cases had been the disappearance of Ethan Sullivan. She'd been a good cop and a good friend. She deserved better than to die wondering if she'd let a culprit escape justice. But some questions don't have answers, and some debts can't be paid in any currency the law recognizes. I locked up the shop and drove home through the mountain darkness. My house was exactly as I'd left it, small, clean, and empty. No surprises, no unwelcome visitors, no ghosts from the past. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and raised the glass to the empty room. To old friends, I said aloud. And to new enemies who learned too late that some people can't be bought, sold, or ended without consequences. I drank the bourbon in one swallow and set the glass down on the table. Not a victim anymore. Never again.